Silence is not peace. It is a weapon. While the weak scream for attention, the powerful use silence to decapitate the ego of their enemies. Most people are terrified of an empty room, but a Stoic turns that void into a mirror. When you refuse to respond to an insult, you aren't being nice, you are being lethal. You are telling your opponent that their entire existence is too insignificant to trigger your nervous system. But be warned, once you master the art of saying nothing, people will start to fear what you're thinking. If you aren't careful, your silence will provoke a desperate reaction that you might not be ready to handle. Your enemy is a junkie for your anger. They insult you because they are starving for a reaction to feel relevant. When you remain silent, you aren't just ignoring them, you are starving them to death. Stoicism is the art of killing an opponent's momentum by offering them nothing to hit. They swing with all their might, expecting the impact of your defense, but they find only a vacuum. This is where the psychological collapse begins. By withholding your words, you force them to fill the silence with their own insecurity. But watch the shift. When the silence lasts too long, the hunter becomes the hunted. They will start talking just to hear a voice, revealing secrets they never meant to tell. They are about to hand you the keys to their own destruction. Silence is a mirror that reflects their own failure. When you stand there, unmoving and mute, the opponent stops looking at you and starts looking at themselves. They see their own shaking hands. They hear their own cracking voice. And they realize they have lost control. In the eyes of a Stoic, the man who screams is a slave to his passions. By refusing to join their chaos, you place yourself on a pedestal of absolute superiority. Your stillness is a cold reminder that you are the master of the room, while they are merely a child throwing a tantrum in the dark. But don't get comfortable. That mirror you've built is fragile. One smirk, one eye roll, and the illusion is shattered. If you show even a flicker of emotion, the weapon turns on you. Control is not about being first. It is about being last. The person who speaks first is the one seeking permission. The person who speaks last is the one giving the verdict. Stoic power lies in the gap between the stimulus and your response. By waiting, you force your opponent to live in the uncertainty of your judgment. They will try to bribe your silence with apologies or more insults, but you must remain an enigma. Silence is the only wall they cannot climb and the only lock they cannot pick. You are letting time erode their confidence until they feel like a beggar at your feet. But the clock is ticking. Wait too long and you become passive. The art of timing is knowing exactly when the silence has done its damage. If you miss the moment to strike back with a single sharp sentence, you lose the high ground forever. True terror is not a threat. It is an unanswered question. When you refuse to validate their reality with a response, their mind begins to eat itself. They start imagining the worst possible meanings behind your gaze. This is the psychological collapse. They're no longer fighting you. They're fighting the demons of their own insecurity. A Stoic understands that words are often just a mask for fear. By staying silent, you rip that mask off. You become an immovable object that their fragile ego simply cannot process. They will crumble under the weight of their own noise, feeling smaller with every passing second of your composure. But the trap is set. When a person is this broken, they become unpredictable. A cornered animal is at its most dangerous. If you push their inferiority too far without a path for escape, you might trigger a storm that no amount of silence can calm. You don't win the war in the light, you win it in the shadows of your own mind. While they babble to fill the air, you are busy constructing a mental fortress. Silence gives you the clarity to see their every weakness, the stutter in their breath, the flicker in their eyes, the desperation in their posture. Marcus Aurelius didn't rule an empire by shouting. He ruled by mastering the space between thought and action. When you remain silent, you are the architect of the situation. You are measuring the ground, waiting for the exact moment to place the final stone of their defeat. They are playing a game of checkers, but you have already moved into the endgame. But don't lose yourself in the darkness. Silence can be a lonely throne. If you spend too much time observing the shadows of others, you might forget how to walk back into the light. The ultimate test of your power is about to begin. And the ultimate power of silence is that it requires nothing from the world. While others are slaves to the feedback of the crowd, you have built a kingdom within your own mind that is immune to their noise. Superiority isn't about looking down on others. It is about being so far above the conflict that you no longer feel the need to win. A Stoic empire is self-sustaining. When you master the art of silence, you realize that your opponent's opinion was never your burden to carry. You have made them feel inferior, not by being cruel, but by being untouchable. You have reclaimed the energy most people waste on useless arguments and used it to fuel your own growth. The lesson is over, but the practice never ends. If you speak now, make sure your words are better than the silence you are breaking. Otherwise, stay in the shadows and keep them guessing. Your journey to absolute mastery starts in the next quiet moment.